Welcome to the wrap-up of Season 1 of The Rich Life Recipe. What a season. I'm Jason Allen Scott. My co-host with the most is...
Alicia Shiro.
Alicia, this was your first podcast, Series 1, you've ever done. What was it like for you before we talk about the ingredients that we got to hear from some of the most incredible people I've ever had the pleasure to spend 60 minutes fully dressed with?
Well, let's just say that I think I enjoyed it so much because I had an expert in podcasting as my co-host. I truly believe that made my life so much easier. If I had to go this alone, it would be a totally different ball game. And I think I learned a lot after the first few episodes. I think I was so stuck on hitting certain questions and making sure we covered certain things that it kind of lost the organicness of the interview. And I think going forward, it's more about diving deep into what the guest feels is their rich life and seeing where that goes, as opposed to us trying to direct the conversation. I think we got a lot more out of people when we just kind of free float it.
Yeah, I think there's a nice balance. I think sometimes it's good when you free flow and I get to bring people back to our 3 pillars. Our listeners will know we have 3 pillars on the show. We believe a rich life recipe is made up of wealth, wisdom, and health. And that's what we're always sort of trying to find. And sometimes I think it's easy to go organic. And there's definitely a couple of interviews, which we'll touch on in a couple of seconds, where I was like, wow, that was so organic. And then I'll end it and I'll go, but what was their recipe to like great health? And I'm like, oh, damn, we didn't ask them, even though they looked like the beacon of health while we were doing the interview. Or I'll be thinking, oh my gosh, they never told us about like if they thought themselves rich. Right, like we obviously think they're rich. We've invited them to the show and they're great cooks, or they're incredible magicians, or they're wonderful thinkers, or they're, bringing us play in a whole new way. But someone like Dr. Rachel, for example, who spoke about authenticity and self-awareness, our first rich life ingredient, I never got to ask the question, do you see yourself having a rich life? Do you think you're a rich person? Because I was so, same as you, I assume, blown away by her awareness of the brain and explaining how the brain works. And, she taught us that you are the expert on you. And I know as someone who has worked a lot on myself through CBT and neuroscience, that has been the biggest thing, the kind of stopping, being quiet, asking myself questions, asking my body questions. And that was something that our audience really sort of resonated with. And I think Craig said something really interesting too. Do you remember what Craig said?
Oh, about chasing the butterflies.
Yes, I love that. Chasing the butterflies and learning to anchor your identity, not in what you do, but why you do it, which is the same thing Stacey Roy said, which I thought was amazing. I didn't recognize this until literally today. I was re-listening to episodes to prepare for this, and I realized they both said the same thing. Stacey did not I would say a better job, but she explained how she connected it with the nerdy bartender, and if she had stuck to that identity, she never would have had the opportunities with Lego and with the Masters and that whole story she told us, whereas Craig told it in a very different way. The next thing that we got as a rich life recipe was this idea of meaningful connections and community.
Right. And I think Dr. Rachel really hit on that one. She mentioned to be a human being, you need a village.
Yes.
And she's not wrong, for sure. We need our people. We need our community.
We have an interesting saying in Africa, and I'm from Southern Africa, which is if the child does not feel the warmth of the community, it will burn the village down to feel its warmth.
Scary thought.
It is. And I think we've seen that. We've seen hurt people because they don't get the love, the unconditional love from their family and from their community. So community is so, so important. You need the village, right? They say it takes a village to raise a child. Again, an expression that comes from Africa.
And also you get to choose that village as opposed to the village you're born into.
Yes. And 100 could not agree more. Like, I think that's something else that, you and I people talk about this a lot. I speak to people, a lot of our fans, which I love, and they'll say, you guys are such a great mix because you're so different. She sounds like she's at home and she's like, running around with family and doing cool things and getting to meet people. And you sound like you're living out of a suitcase and going from place to place. And the video keeps changing the background of where you are, like what Airbnb or what hotel. And I'm like, yeah, and like I think you're incredibly rich, not because of a lot of things. I think the average person might look at you and be like, you're well dressed and your hair's gorgeous and your teeth stunning and your makeup's on point. Like, I'll be like, no, like she lives
But
close to
thank you.
family. Well, yes. But I'll be like, I think Alicia is rich
All
because she's
smoke
near
and
family.
mirrors.
It's all, yeah, it's all fantastic.
All smoke and mirrors. It's held together with Gorilla Glue.
If you're listening to this, go to YouTube. You'll see that I am not lying. It's absolutely true. But it's because you live near family, with family, you're visiting friends, you're having brunches, you're on a boat celebrating with people that love you, and it's so obvious. And to me, that's one of the strongest ingredients of what rich looks like or should look like. And when I think again about rich and what rich should look like, I have to talk about the childlike innocence exuberance of John Stessel.
Amazing. I mean, he just wows me, like not only with his magic, but just his entire perspective on life. And, he mentioned rising tides lift all boats. And I thought that's such a good analogy because it's true, and it's just, he does have that childlike play within him. And I think that's just so important to remember how to have fun, especially when times are hard.
I absolutely, I love that. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you've seen me suddenly distracted, it's because I just got a message from our producer reminding, firstly, to say thank you so much to everyone. We've just found out that over 42,000 people have listened at some point to our show, which is
way to
unbelievable.
Go, rich rollers. Yeah, we love our rich rollers.
10 episodes. One of our biggest ones, funny enough, does come from John Stessel, which I'm not surprised by. Again, incredible podcast, but also because it's so visual, so we can see that. But we can also see that 26.4% of you haven't subscribed. You're listening to the episodes, but you're not clicking the subscribe button. And what we'd love is for you to click that subscribe button so we can see that you want to hear more from us and to bring on more guests onto the show, which of course season 2 is just around the corner. But I apologize for breaking our flow there, but I was so blown away by that quick stat that just came across the desk. The next thing that we know is environments that foster growth. Dr. Rachel said, for things to change, my environment must change. And I have to say,
that hit you personally.
Massively, absolutely massively. When I was going through my third divorce, and I was really, really, yes, I know it sounds
I'm
terrible.
not laughing.
Thank you.
Everybody should get divorced at least once.
At least once. At least.
I'm in the club.
Yes. Here's the thing about divorce. When you divorce the first time, it's your partner's fault, right? I can tell you that hand on heart, everyone I've spoken to. When you get divorced the second time, maybe you can still blame your partner. But when you get divorced the third time, you realize it's your fault. You 100% realize and if you're paying attention, right? You can think maybe it isn't. But if you're paying attention, it's your fault. You are the common denominator. You are not doing something right. You are not respecting the process. You are not doing the work. You are not giving the attention that the relationship deserves. That's what I learned. And I went to Dr. Rachel as a patient, and I said, I'm struggling and I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I don't know if I want to get through this. And I remember she said, the last time you were struggling, what was the mantra that helped you survive? And I've had a lot of really tough times. And I said, for things to change, I must change. And she said, okay, I want to give you a new mantra. And that is, for things to change, my environment must change. Change everything about where you are. Change the location. I moved to the beach, Portimao in Portugal. Change the thing you do to socialize. I used to drink to socialize. I stopped drinking completely. And I wasn't a drunk by a long shot, but it definitely helped me. It lubricated conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've been there.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I changed my friends. I changed the people I hung out with. And Jim Rohn is right. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. I changed what I did. I started reading as opposed to just they call doom scrolling?
Scrolling.
Thank you. So that when she says that resonates with me because my entire life has turned around in 6 years because of this line. For things to change, my environment must change. And I know Cara Brooken said something that resonated with you.
Yeah, she's amazing. So, for those that don't know, Kara Brookins built a house with her kids watching YouTube videos, but back in, I don't know, I think it was 2000, it was before you watch it on your mobile device. She said, I needed tangible, I needed things I could touch.
Mm,
And the purpose of this was so that she could bond with her kids and get
mm,
through the trauma that they experienced while she was married. And this just takes life to a whole new level to be able to build a house with your kids
mm,
and not have a video in front of you. It was watch it, go to where the house is, and then build from memory.
mm.
Lessons learned.
And I'm so glad you ended that sentence with lessons learned. Something I want everyone to pick up from this show. If you're listening to the show and you laugh and or you go, or wow, that's interesting, and you do nothing, you've actually learned nothing.
Nothing.
Learning is changing. Learning is saying, I realized that chasing money doesn't make you happy. So I stopped chasing money and I started chasing purpose, or I started chasing community, or I started chasing religion, or I started chasing life for a better life for my kids, or for a better world, whatever. That's learning. Learning is iteration on failure for a different outcome. It's from listening to people, reading people, which hopefully will bring you over and over and over the seasons to come, where because you've heard something and you've tried something, you can see the results. There's tangible proof of your work, something you can touch, you change. Things change. Life
Mhm.
becomes better. I think again, Cara Brookins said as well. She said, I built the house, like you said. She got over 1 billion views. And if you haven't listened to that episode, please, 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 I trust me, it's incredible. Alicia brought this guest. I'd never even heard of her, and her story was so compelling. And she said, Jason, I realized that I didn't have anywhere to drive the people. They were watching my video, and then I didn't even have a website. I wasn't ready for the thing I said I wanted. And that really resonated with me because I remember my friend Caleb saying, if you don't have a dream, how do you know when you've got your dream life,
Mhm.
your dream partner, your dream career, your dream? Because I said I didn't have a dream. I just wanted to keep being here day in and day out. That was it. He was like, you need a dream. You need to know that you've woken up and you've got something that can become real. I thought that was beautiful. It reminded me a lot of courage and taking calculated risks. And our incredible poker player, Lisa Pical, who said, keep chasing the butterflies. I'll tell you what else she said. Sorry, that really resonated with me. She said, all you need is a chip and a chair. And
Yep.
I'm going to get a t-shirt made of that. And when I come over to the US, I'm going to give it to our audience and I'll give it to Lisa. But I thought that was so beautiful. This idea is that's all you need. If you want to play in the game of life, you need to be able to sit down on something and say, here I am. This is who I am. I'm sitting on this chair. And then you need to put something forward, right? An action, in her case, a chip. She needed a chip and a chair.
And Lisa is aggressive. She even
Oh,
says you should have an ego and you
mm,
should know that you are the best at what you do.
mm,
And
mm.
and she stands by that cuz she says I'm in it to win. I
Yeah,
think you got to be in it to win, and that's with life, that's with everything. If you're just going about your day willy-nilly, life will happen to you.
yeah, not
If you
for you.
set a purpose and intention, you are creating the life you want.
Yeah, definitely. Courage, right? That's what it is. It's grace under fire, as one of the great American presidents said. It's courage and calculated risks. It's going back to Cara Brookins. It's big goals are easier to reach than small goals. Let's go for
Mhm.
those big goals because you'll be shocked what you can achieve versus these small goals that were like, oh, it'll be easy to achieve, so we put it off. It's the better paradox, this idea that it's not that bad, so I'll just do the least I can do to keep getting through it day in and day out, day in and day out.
And having that passion and
Mm,
practicality, the balance between the two. I think
absolutely.
John Stessel, right? He mentioned something with using that ingredient. And I thought this was so thought provoking because he was like, know your market when you're selling, and whatever your creative service is or whatever your passion is, find the best way to sell that and know your value. And I thought that was so
Absolutely.
interesting.
And yeah, I mean, so both of us, obviously, we've done talks for the New York Public Library, and we did that great talk with Emily Tron, who, by the way, is coming up on season 2. So make sure to subscribe. You will not miss an episode. It'll drop right in your box every Wednesday when we go out. And I remember saying, like, the thing that she does, right? She sells pain. She talks about, you're not happy with your face, you're not happy with feeling the way you look tired. So she's like, I can fix this thing. And I said, oh, it's really interesting because, I think that's the one thing we all have in common. You, me, Emily, all these people, and obviously John talks about, we're selling value. We're not selling the thing. It's not the price. It's the value. It's not, I will help you create a podcast, or I'll help you get a supplement that'll make your dog have longer years, more vitality. It's, what's the value of that? Well, it's more cuddles on the couch with your favorite animal. Well, it's a chance to spread your story. It's a chance to get in front of your customers. It's a chance to build an audience that will buy your product and service. Like we talk about value. You're having an event. It's not about getting people in a room. It's about creating a space to tell a story, share a moment, experience.
And how we're making people feel. Yeah. I think one thing our podcast does differently than the others is we are giving tangible ingredients and recipes for people to implement. Just give it a listen. You will take away something that you can implement that day to get closer to who you want to be or whatever that goal is that you're trying to achieve.
Definitely. And I think that brings us to the next ingredient of the Rich Life recipe: giving back and creating value for others. It's giving back, it's creating value, it's continuous learning and growth. It's these small, easy things. And we've got so many people that did this really well. We've got Michael Gazzo, right? The breath expert, the guy that is a multi-award creating producer. And he goes, the work is compounding and it also gets more subtle. He realized that it wasn't about smashing out these things to become the best. He could do it in a subtle way, just as easy it is to breathe, and realize that you could also be breathing wrong, that there are easier, more natural ways to find our way, right? That is what it's about. It's about this continuous learning and growth. And
I want to go on an ayahuasca trip with him.
100. I mean, I'm scared to do that. I'm not going to lie. But I did a breathworks with him. I think I said this to you. You should do it. It's phenomenal. He's incredible. Definitely check out Michael Gazzo. Harrison Greenbaum. I can't move forward without a single step without mentioning Harrison. He talked about a few things. He talked about, he pulled on his warm-up experience from Comedy and Magic and how that was so important, how doing these warm-ups over and over and over and over again allowed him to learn patience. And by doing it again and again and again, it was a practical way to be able to be better. And I said this to everyone, there's no such thing as imposter syndrome. Your brain just hasn't seen evidence of you doing the thing you keep telling everyone that you are. If you tell everyone you're a magician and you haven't been practice magic in the back room every single day, then you will feel like an imposter. But if in the warm-ups, every single time you're doing the work and you go and tell people you're a magician, you're going to feel confident because your brain's going to say, I've seen the evidence. And I loved, and talking about evidence, I can't talk about evidence and not talk about Ollie, the chocolatier, the real life Willy Wonka.
Yeah, Ollie is just amazing. And
if you're British, you would have seen him this week. In fact, Alicia, I was going to message you. He was on our biggest TV show this week.
I saw. Yeah, Ollie there's no better personality. I mean, and I just think he's one of the, one of our guests that does give back in so many different ways, through art, through his chocolate, through his family. And one of the things he really touched on a lot was having love in his life. And whether that comes from family or friends, that really resonated for him, and being able to do what he loves. That was his rich life recipe.
Absolutely. And he shows it. If you follow him on Instagram, he's on his one wheel, he's making chocolate, he's running around from cause to cause, giving back. I mean, just giving and giving and giving. And it's with that in mind that I want to talk again about the incredible Harrison Greenbaum, who gives us comedy and laughter and magic. And in that, he brings us astonishment. And he believes that there is a balance, that there is some beautiful thing in the balance of all of that. That finding joy is in the journey, not just the destination. That's something I think Harrison and John Stessel, the other magician, had in common.
I know. And, I still struggle with that because I'm always like, I just want to get to the destination. And I don't really care about the journey. But from listening to our guests and trying to slow down and enjoy the process, because Harrison said, when the door opens, be
Mm,
ready to walk
mm,
through it.
mm.
It's like you can keep manifesting and wishing and, praying that certain things happen. But the real question is, when it does happen, are you ready to walk through that door?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's part of enjoying the journey.
Hmm. Definitely. I've got a massive birthday coming up, and I'm still depressed about
Yeah,
this.
you do.
Thank you.
Ah.
But I will say that getting to the day, the end of that journey, isn't going to feel as good as all the days that have led for me to get to that day. Right? It has been the journey. I've had times where, when I was a kid, especially, my biggest dream. In fact, I got in trouble so many times in primary school because when they asked you what did you want to be when you're older, and people would say a plumber, an actor, a cowboy, an Indian, a princess, I would say I want to be old. Like that's all I wanted. I wanted to be an old man that could just look back and be like, oh, I got to have kids. Like all the pain would be behind me, and I would have already had life, and I'd be on that rocking chair on a porch somewhere. Like that. I remember it so clear as day. But if I had got what I wanted, I would have missed out on the journey of doing all those things that have become memories. Right? It is not only the getting through the door, but the walking through the door, wanting the door to exist. It's all those things. If you want to be patient, you can't just get patience. You've got to go through hard things for a
Mm,
long time, and then you get patience. You want to be
mm-hmm.
great, you've got to be courageous, and then you get courage. And the courage leads you to do great things. So I think that was probably the last thing I want to say as we sort of close this up. The last big recipe that we got from the Rich Life Recipe, from season 1 at least, and we'll find out what season 2 brings us, is this idea of resilience and perseverance through challenges. Whether it was Cara Brookins or Stacey Roy, it was these powerful, incredible women, also these guys, but these women that really resonated with me the most because of how tough it is just to be a woman in general. Like you have a far
Mm-hmm.
look at femtech, look at startup culture, look at how much money is invested into women versus men, how many opportunities given to women as men. And I read this beautiful, I'm sorry to end this on such a horrible thing, and Alicia, you're gonna have to come up with something light to end this episode, but I read this fantastic quote about 10 years ago, and it said, men's greatest fear is that a woman laughs at them, a woman's greatest fear is that a man kills them. And that was, yeah,
Wow.
that's by the author of oh my gosh, it's going to kill me, The Widow's Tale, I think it's called. Margaret
Well,
Atwood is the author.
I
And it's
can't say
true.
I'm surprised.
Statistically,
Statistically proven, women who are murdered are typically murdered by someone they know, and it's usually a
100%.
man.
Yeah, yeah. And
So, yeah.
so yeah, so I think that's maybe why I've learned so much about resilience and perseverance through the women we've had on the show, more than the men. The men are great, and they're wonderful, and they're exciting, and they're fun, and what incredible men we've had. But it's been the women that have taught me the most about resilience and perseverance through challenge, because every
Yeah.
day is a challenge just to be a woman, let alone to be a woman that is a speaker or a Lego master or a nerdy bartender or a neuroscientist or all the incredible women. And by the way, on that, if you're listening right now, immediately go to the next episode. We have the woman coming in from page 6. Right, that is episode 1 of season 2. We're starting on a banger, so you want to go straight into that episode from this one, or if it's not out yet, you want to click subscribe so you're not going to miss it. It's going to fall straight in your inbox. Before we end this episode, tell us quickly about the guest we're going to have in season 2 that works for page 6. And for those that don't know, what is page 6?
Page 6 is an iconic page as part of the New York Post. So, for anyone who lives in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, no matter where you live, typically in the US, you know the New York Post and you know page 6. It's basically the entertainment page of who is who.
Oh,
And my friend, who I am proud to say is a friend, Astra, just got her dream job of being the anchor for page 6.
wow.
So full circle moment for her, and we'll get into that later, but she does so many interviews. She is the face of page 6, and her journey, her career, her success, her rich life is just unfounded. Because as we said earlier, as a woman, right? I don't always like to pull the, oh, it's hard to be a woman card.
Facts.
But It is tricky to navigate because of so many aspects. Like, I would love to say more women support women, but that's not been the case. So
Mhm.
when you do meet a woman who is true to herself and super authentic and is a girl's girl, those are the women you want to surround yourself with. And
I love that.
unfortunately, there's not a lot of them. And I hate to
Mm.
say that, but it's true.
Absolutely. So make
And
sure
Astra
to.
is
Oh,
here.
that's it. Yeah, we're getting off right now. I was hoping Alicia was going to spin that up a little faster. We're jumping off right now to jump straight in with an episode with Astra, the official Page Six anchor and New York City-based radio personality. If that is something that you think you'd love to hear more about, because Alicia has queued it up so brilliantly, you're going to want to make sure to subscribe. But no matter what you do, from Alicia and myself, I just want to say a big thank you so much for supporting us in our first season. You didn't know who we were, you didn't know why you should care, and I'm hoping we're bringing you such great people that you have a reason to keep coming back episode after episode. We promise we'll do the same.
Subscribe and follow. Thank you to our rich rollers.
Adios for now.
If you love this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss your weekly fix. New episodes are released every Wednesday. And if you think this podcast could help someone in your life build their own rich life recipe, please make sure to share this with them too.
Hi, I'm Jason Owen Scott. You may recognize me from such podcasts as, well, the one you were just listening to. I've done a bunch of podcasts. In fact, I'm the first person ever to not sell one show, but sell two. To find over 20 ways to promote a show, to get more listeners. I've also found over 30 ways to make money from my podcast. It was at this stage that so many people came to me and asked me one question. How? How do you make money from a podcast? Which blew my mind, because I kind of accepted that everyone was making money from a podcast, or why were they starting a podcast? But here's the trick. There's a formula that I found out back in 2015, and I've tested on people over and over and over again. To finally finding out that there's one recipe, just like the Rich Life recipe, a recipe to success. For the first time ever, we have a course that has everything in it. How to start a podcast, how to grow a podcast, how to promote a podcast, and how to profit from a podcast. I've done it in multiple podcast types, from lifestyle, to business, to financial, to crypto. So this is your chance. And because you've come this far, I'd love to give you a gift. If you use the coupon code LISTENER, you will get 20% off. What I'd love you to do is go to the link podcastingforbusiness.co and open the gate and meet me on the other side.